All right. Hey, good morning, folks. We are working on creature token art for the upcoming Eberron adventure, Crystals of Mabar, which we have the book cover here. I'm going to check my signal here, and then I'm going to go through my intro, and then we'll get to work here for a little bit. So hold on real quick while I check my signal here with a mic check. Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Check my signal here with a mic check. Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Check my signal here with a mic check. Mic check. That sounds pretty solid. Excellent. Let's go like this. I'm going to start boosting my signal across the internet here. And while I do that, I'm going to amuse you with my intro spiel. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition since the release of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, when they created that cornerstone Magic the Gathering setting as a D&D setting. I thought that they were going to be providing some sort of conversation about color mana and color magic in general as a potential replacement for the 8 schools of magic and spell slots, but they didn't. So I decided to, hold my beer and let's create one. So I did, and I'm looking forward to updating it when the new 2024 books come out. So you can check out the description down below. Most of it's probably going to be unchanged, except for what the character new class options are that we'll be able to build out color language with. But that got me a taste for building 5e content in general. And Eberron's been my favorite setting since it came out in 3rd edition back in the 2000s somethings. So I'm now at a place where I can actually create adventures and publish them. So I just posted that I'm live on Twitter. If you're on the Twitter X platform, you can follow me at Phil Kearney. You can like and subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications of when I'm live in the future. And this book cover for the adventure that we're creating here, we created this back around episode 40 of the playtest of the playlist. So we have the playlist here for the previous 190 some odd episodes that we've ran through so far. And since we're creating an adventure, we're creating unique tokens for all the creatures and NPCs that can be encountered throughout the adventure. So that's what we're going to continue working on today. So we're just going to dive into this and just get going. So we're doing this is a 300 by 300 inch pixel space that we are currently basically doing some pixel art for different creatures. So it's an Eberron adventure in Karnath. There is a bunch of rogue necromancers that are creating a stable portal to Mabar by basically juicing a manifest zone and triggering a co-termination out of cycle. And so there's a number of different watchdog groups that keep an eye out for similar shenanigans, such as the gatekeepers and the Silver Flame, and those are 2 protagonist organizations, I would say, that are interested in what's happening here. But on the more sinister side, there's the Council of 12 that can recruit you to investigate what's exactly going on with this necromancer factory that they've invested into. It seems that it's gone rogue and they're no longer getting responses back, so they're curious what happened to their investment. And this is all hinging on an artifact that was stolen from Aether Academy called the Eye of Mabar. Well, just one of 13 different planar artifacts that the team could potentially collect in an ongoing epic quest to have artifacts that can create manifest zones to any different plane of existence that you want. And the Eye of Mabar is just the first that we're providing information about. Hey, Karen, it's good to see you. So it's an 8th level adventure, and it has lots of unique creatures inside of it and different takes on existing creatures. So we wanted to create tokens for each of them to include as part of the content that you get when you purchase the thing. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now. For people that are curious about the spelljammer combat and exploration supplement that I've been creating, it is we are currently basically done with all the artwork for it, and I am in production phase right now. Basically doing a bunch of what do you call it? Assembly work. Like before jumping on stream now, I was working on creating all the bookmarks throughout the document so that when you create the PDF, there'll be a proper there'll be a site. If you build a PDF, right, and you've got your text, blah blah blah, if you click on a button, it pops open basically a list, a table of contents in the PDF itself of everything you've hyperlinked in the Word document before creating the PDF itself. So I'm going through the process of building out all those hyperlinks right now, and then going up to the table of content to make sure that the table of content goes to all the appropriate pages in the document. And then throughout the document, there's a number of hyperlinks that says, for more information, like you can deal damage with a ballista. For more information about ballista damage, go to the weapons and crew section of the combat chapter, and then that would be a statement. And if you click that, it would then take you to that part. So that's a bunch of assembly work that isn't necessarily very exciting to watch, but is required for me to actually finish the document. So since I don't have any real interesting content to run on the day-to-day operations of Spelljammer as I finalize the book, I just decided to keep the morning stream going and doing Eberron art instead. So no, it's as I was just commenting, it's not quite done yet. I'm expecting it to be done basically in D4 plus 4 days at this point. The assembly work should be done today, and then we'll be after we get the hyperlinking should be done today. And after we finish the hyperlinking, then we start importing all of the images that we had done in Photoshop into the document itself, so that it sits on the page. Once all of that's in place, we get to seal it up into a PDF and we can publish it. So I'm expecting a number of days needed to import and properly align all of the 70 some odd images that we'd painted for that book. But then I also need to do the packaging and then all the creature, like all the NPCs, creatures, and ship tokens that we had created for the book, along with all the maps for Latticer Access. We need to put all those into a zip file. So once the zip file is completed and the PDF is done, that could be done in as soon as a week. So very, very soon. I'm running out of tasks to perform for the Spelljammer book, but unfortunately I'm out of interesting stuff to do on the book. From here on forward, it's going to be pretty boring. It's just assembly work, which is I'll be basically going through some of the assembly process tonight, and about maybe 12 or so hours. I'll spend maybe an hour or two just going through some assembly process, so you guys see how the thing works and like what you got to do to make that happen. But for the most part, so on Monday, Thursday, tonight, Thursday, and then probably Monday next week, I'll be doing Spelljammer art. But otherwise, I'll only be doing Spelljammer videos like I release on Sundays. That's going to be pretty much it for Spelljammer content until I start the new book. And for people that want to subscribe to become members of my Patreon, they can vote on which Spelljammer book I create next once the combat and exploration book is finalized and published. So big shifting in gears. Looking very much forward to it. It's almost done. When it is, I'll have a new video posted, just basically for bragging rights. But you can, if you catch me on Twitter, or if you join my Discord group, or if you are on my Patreon, you'll have links to the Spelljammer book once it's completed, which is very, very soon. Which is, a common statement from Phil. The book will be done soon, but seriously, we're running out of tasks. Yeah, very, very soon. I'm excited. And big thanks to the Spelljammer community on Reddit, again, taking interest in the work that I do. Every time I post a video there, I end up getting more subscribers. So I really appreciate everyone's interest in the work that I've been doing for Spelljammer. It's probably the best work I've ever done, quite honestly. It's certainly the most robust and complicated mechanics. Between that and the color mana system that I created, I think I have enough chops to actually be able to build my own role-playing game from scratch, which I've been honestly doing during my lunch streams. And so I have a lunch stream on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, including today, where we've been building an Eberron Spelljammer campaign where different factions from Corvair are basically competing for resources in the Tears of Sybaris, which is the crystals that orbit the planet. So we built basically a mining campaign out of that. And the team went through character creation last week with me, and that went well, but not everyone was there. So I'm hoping to be able to crash course everyone through. This we'll play again on Wednesday. So I'll have today and tomorrow lunch times, which will be in about almost 7 o'clock here in Seattle. So in about 5 hours, we'll be back on to do more Asteroid Belt, Eberron Asteroid Belt mining campaign. It's with dwarves, gnomes, and warforged, basically working together in orbit against the other nations of Corvair, as well as Sarlona, and the elves of Arenal. Basically all competing for resources. Dargoon has a large presence. Droam has a large presence. And so the characters are competing against these different factions in space, staking claims on different asteroids and trying to protect their mining crews as they go in to extract resources. Some of it's adventure focused, some of it is decidedly not adventure focused, but part of the activities of a guild, which the team basically resolves once a month as a couple die rolls that I then parse out as adventure hooks for them to have decide what they want to be involved in directly and what they want to relegate to their NPC mining operation. It's a fun campaign. It's using a different resolution mechanic, because we only have an hour of gameplay each week, but there's 6 players, so we have to be very fast. So basically, I've built out the campaign to focus mostly on ability score checks and group tasks like that focus in on making ability checks. A lot more emphasis on how important every stat on the character sheet is, for them to decide how they as a team want to resolve different diplomacy, scouting, heists, and combat missions. But I can't have the same depth of action economy that we have in 5e games. It has to be more like the original old school BX, or maybe these days it'd be more appropriate to call it Shadow Dark, or the OSR type games, because that's far more akin to play style that the players are going to be engaging in most of the time, where you've got basically a move action, an action you can take, and then you're done, and then you move on to the next person. And creatures have a similarly short action economy where you hit them and they die. But it has to be fast like that, because like 5e is not known for its fast combat gameplay. That is not what 5e is built around. But it's a robust enough resolution system of basically D20, take highest roll, or add stats and compete against a target number. That is the quintessential source of just D20 games in general, and what 5e evolved from. So it remains a valid game mechanic that I want to lean into because of its fast resolution. And if we end up losing people over the course of the campaign, because you're always going to lose people, especially when you have 6 people, you're just naturally going to have attrition. So once we start losing people and we gain levels, we could consider like increasing their action economy, like with extra attacks and stuff like that. But starting at level 1 as we are, we'll probably see attrition before we get to that point, and we'll know how we need to move the game forward. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go down here and mess around with these legs a little bit. So we'll be developing that campaign material more at lunchtime today and tomorrow. That takes place typically like around 1 o'clock here in Seattle, which is in about 5 hours from now. So I'm going to do this for another hour, and then I'll bounce, and I'll be back in 5 for my lunch stream, and then we'll be back tonight in about 12 some odd hours to continue just looking under the hood of how to build the spelljammer PDF and where we're at with that. Hopefully I should have all the hyperlinking done this afternoon before we start streaming, so that when we jump on, you can see how the navigation bar works and how I built that, and all the mechanics that go into building a PDF. I'll reveal my secrets for those that are interested in seeing them. And since I only use Microsoft Word as my program, that's something that's often available to people to make use of themselves. A lot of people just have access to the Microsoft suite, so it's been my default program for doing page layouts basically for the past 6 years. It's because I have it, it's free, and it's easy to use, and more people have access to it than anything else, so it's actually pretty useful to walk through like how you can build things with it, and like how you can build professional looking PDFs with just using Word. But I am almost done with this character here. We'll do a random die roll to see which creature we colorize next. So give me a few minutes here to finish up the armor on this dude. We'll be able to move on to the next piece. And we have the Martial Powers playtest that's going to be coming up. As soon as the Spelljammer book is done next week, we'll be able to move on to, since we're not going to be seeing the player's handbook until September, no sense in prepping the conversion project for the color mana system. But once those 2024 books start to drop, I will definitely be updating the color mana system to remain compliant with where the new character options go and how they build. I don't anticipate a lot of changes are necessary, but it's a great opportunity for me to glam it up. My ability, my layout, my page layout skills have improved considerably since releasing that torrent of books back in 5 years ago. So it's a great opportunity for me just to do a quality of improvement. Plus the release of Strixhaven and Theros, I can introduce or add those setting options into the core color mana mechanics, and create basically a duplicatable format for if they do Kaladesh or other settings in the future as well. I'll be able to add those on basically as tear out PDFs. Good coffee. Karen, how have you been? Anyone else that's lurking out there, say what up. Happy to have folks around. Makes it more fun. One of the reasons I stream every day is because I paint every day. And it's been a lifelong habit. I mean, basically since I was 12 years old, I've been committed to drawing or painting something every day. And as I get into these bigger and bigger projects, they become more and more foreboding. And I found that streaming the artwork that I do, and then later as I started creating PDFs, page production, it's just been more. It's just been very fulfilling to be able to keep momentum going and just to be able to talk shop and kind of lean into some of the ideas that I have and share how those things come about. What's up? Nice. Right on. Glad more peaceful times loom ahead for you. There. I love pixel art. It's so much fun. I considered getting into pixel art for a little while there in the earlier 2000s, but as I understand it, the bulk of work that's available is actually like creating like 500 different color cherries for a digital slot machine for online gambling, for instance. It's like that's not my jam. I don't want to do that. Everything requires assembly work or like mass production. Otherwise, people wouldn't do it. But plus, if that had been my industry, I'd be crying now because surely AI has already taken over that industry. I can't imagine online gambling slot machines relying on human any more than necessary. And with AI being what it is now, I don't think that there's a necessity at all, likely. There we go. Build that. Oh, that's fantastic. Good on you. I mean, that'll take you off your feet for a lot. Well, you'll have a mega boot, a big padded boot to clump around in. But that's fantastic. Good on. Glad to hear it. Gaining mobility and ease of life is just one of the greatest gifts that society has given to humanity, or humanity gave to itself. I don't know. Anyway, I think this guy looks pretty good. We're gonna call him done for now. Bow Knight. This is a boss. There's a number of maps in this adventure, and each map has not each map has a boss. That's not solely true, but the cemetery that's in the manifest zone is definitely one of the places that has a mini boss, and this is that mini boss. He has a number of skeletal warriors that follow his commands, and when he rises from his crypt, he starts causing trouble for folks. Bone Knight. Locked down. What other monsters we still got on tap here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to roll a D12, a D11 here. So let's go to random.org. What's the big fuss about true randomness? I don't know, man, but if you give me a 6, it's going to be pretty freaking sus. So, generate equals, it's an 11. Unexpected. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. We picked up more subscribers since yesterday. That's awesome. Thanks a lot, guys, for taking interest in this stuff. Well, 11's easy. That's going to be the assassin vines. So, there we go. My face is all itchy right now. So we're gonna work on said assassin vine. Let's go fetch an image of what assassin vines are. See what the internet has to say about D&D 5e assassin vine. Images. Let's see if there's any images we can attribute anyone to. Oh, I think this was 3rd edition, wasn't it? Ass in vines. I'm going to steal this for the color content. Go here. Ref. And then let's grab, I'm going to, let's see, Sullen Willow. That's an image I like. Well, I mean, hey, the time is when the time is. There's no sense shaming yourself for how you prioritize things. You gotta do what you gotta do. It just sounds like it's time for you to take action finally, and that's great. It's when you need to. I'm looking for Soul and Willow. Well, I mean, how about let's go with Soul and Willow tree, and so maybe we'll get less celebrity. And oh my God, that's some amazing artwork. Go Etsy. Good job, kids. That's a fun picture. Let's see. I'm trying to find a good. This might actually be a decent picture. Let's do that. There. Let's zoom out. So I don't see any color. For those that don't know and are new to the channel, hey guys, I'm colorblind. I don't see any color at all. I have no cones in my eyes, zero color information. So for me to be able to color, to paint in color, I can use Photoshop. Here we are. Colorshop to me has the best color tools that are the most intuitive and rely on the most number of numbers and math in general. Most of the work, all I need to do is work out of an RGB slider. So when I'm going to depict an illustration, here I can zip up the reference document for now, but I can grab a mid-tone, and for now I'll grab a shadow. So there we go. So you can see there's a mild reddishness going on here, but for the most part, it's a fairly desaturated picture. So what happens if we come up here? Still very mild saturation, but that's okay because we can see here. Let's look at this in comparison. This has the same R leaning slide. But here at the same value, let's find, there. See, these values are very, very similar here. And you can see that there's a very mild uptick on red over blue, and red and green are about the same. But then when we look at the assassin vine here, it's leaning more into red. So there will be enough color dichotomy there that I can use this lower saturated color for the tree, and it will, as you can see here, we're trying to create the tree as more of a frame for the more illustrated assassin vine itself. So once we color in the frame of this tree using this lower saturation, that should help make the assassin vine itself stand out more in the illustration as it should. I bet that here, see, that's got a higher level of saturation than I expected too. That's interesting. It's going to be really useful. There we go. That's a better mid-tone there, and then we can compare that to, like, say, here. Oh, interesting. This has a sharper resolution here, or a sharper dichotomy, but very similar. So yeah, these are a good match. What's up? It's actually mobile. It's not rooted to anything, but what it does is the assassin vine, it hides amongst branches and willow leaves, draping. And when you come around, it chokes you, and then it feeds off. It basically crawls into your corpse and grabs nourishment out of your dead body, but it gets it by strangling you. So strangulation is a good way of eliminating mobile threats. But an assassin vine can migrate from tree to tree slowly. So most of it's kind of like a lurker, or like a dark mantle, different dungeon delving things that fall like stalactite type creatures that fall and stab you and then feast on your blood. Sort of the same thing. Sort of the same thing. That's the general vibe. But it's a like how to say you're evil without actually being evil. plants like that just really mercilessly prey on people is a good way of expressing, you know, how to be hostile. What I want to do is grab all that into a bundle. And then when I duplicate it, for now I'm just going to call this black white. And then we'll go over here to color. Tree. You. I've got Paul Newman in my head. I'm just gonna paint over the thing in a base color here. And of course I want to do it manually. So that's it helps me familiarize myself with the piece, and as I keep my eyes on the illustration itself, it helps me basically feed into what it will become. That will be the vine. What's up? Yeah, on and over trees. Yeah, and then it'll move to another, like if it's not a good hunting ground, it'll move to another area. Like after it kills a couple kids in a playground and people will keep an eye out for it, it's smart enough to know that it's becoming conspicuous and it'll move on. So at night it'll lurk onto another tree and it'll just migrate slowly through a forest, trying to find some place that has large enough animals for it to strangle. Very hostile approach. I mean, nature is brutal, as Brundlefly would call it. I can't remember the name of that actor who was the chaotician in Jurassic Parks. And Jeff Goldblum, thank you. I loved his performance in, what was it, like 1992, The Fly, the remake. That remake was so good. It was such great practical effects. And just the grossness of the fly monster that he became. It was a legendary film. If you have not seen Jeff Goldblum's The Fly, super worth your time. The Fly 2 was only so-so. But the first one was freaking awesome. It had Gina Davis in it. Oh, it's awesome. But one of the lines, the reason that came up is because one of the lines, as he's going through the process of being transformed into a fly, he said, "Nature is brutal. It is efficient. Doesn't care about your feelings." That was the instinct that no, it was the insect kingdom is brutal. That's it, not nature, but the insect kingdom is brutal. But I transposed that to nature in this conversation. I now realize the irrelevance of the comments being a reference to a miscued quote. But I'm going to let the statement stand. And Jeff Goldblum is he's a great. I think he's a great actor. I like his work. I don't think Earth Girls Are Easy was necessarily his best work, but it was certainly the first instance of him and Gina Davis working together. What a horrible, horrible teen angst movie. I guess that's what that genre is. Dating isn't easy movies. I think I'm going to conceal the vines. Make sure that I'm... looking at the branches properly. Freaking Earth Girls Are Easy. What a horrible movie. Back before the internet existed. And smut was everywhere. Just like that. Hey there, Timely Timer. So now that the Eberron project is my morning gig again, I'm going to be here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, in the mornings like this, typically like around 6:30 Pacific time in Seattle. Probably about 100 minutes in the morning. Once I finish all these creature tokens, we're going to finish the random encounter maps. We have a forest map and a swamp map, and then some broke down structures like a dilapidated gazebo and a ruins of a stone shack. There are just a couple of different locations that characters can find inside this adventure. If the DM wants to add in extra content, just random, if you're a random encounter style DM, then having random locations to go along with the random encounters themselves is useful, and it adds a little bit of variety and helps create a little more context about. If you're providing maps, it provides information about what's the environment like, it has subtle language that it provides. The more ruinous the structures are that they find in the woods and inside the manifest zone, the more evident it is of the rotting effect that the necromancy of Mabar has on natural environments. And how much of an ongoing threat that becomes. It's a subtle statement, but we took the time we were taking the time to build the assets to help demonstrate that, so that it becomes just a part of the ambiance that this plane of Mabar just rots everything. It will destroy reality if it's allowed to have a large enough foothold in the environment to rot out the material world from the inside out, basically. And I think that's a fun background radiation sort of threat to have in the adventure in general. Do that. So the manifest zone, like I said, it rots away most natural occurring plants or whatever. Like, it turns everything basically into necromantic soup. It breaks down. It's necromancy. It breaks down the cellular structure of all the plants that are present inside of the unnaturally sustained manifest zone. And so the assassin vines have to migrate out of that region just because their trees are dying and they don't want to die with it. So they have to leave the region and find stable trees that aren't rotting out from underneath them. So that leads them out of the manifest zone into the local forest, where the team is venturing from the starting village into the manifest zone where all the dungeon spaces are at. But before they get there, they get to potentially have random encounters of bumping into these different creatures and monsters and in this instance plants that are being displaced by the manifest zone. So if the DM really leans into it, it can be a whole slew of monsters that are basically migrating north to south that you shouldn't be seeing migrating. So it's like, this is weird that we're running across plants like assassin vines like this, like, a lot. What is up with that? And then they can find out, it's like, oh, well, all the vegetation is rotting. They don't have anywhere to go. So it doesn't spell it out for the players to understand this, but if the DM is absorbing the content of the adventure, it becomes, pretty obvious that all these creatures are fleeing the manifest zone. So you don't have to spell stuff out for the players, but the DMs know why things are happening. They can lean into that as part of intelligence checks if they wanted to, or survival checks or nature checks. Like if you have players that have skills that they're proficient in, they want to have reasons to use them. And even though any ability check can potentially answer the question, a savvy DM will keep an eye on what proficiencies the players have chosen to learn that are like flavor, like ribbon features. Like, you don't become a cook because you're trying to min-max your character. Even the cooking feat doesn't really do much for you. But I find as a player that I occasionally want to take just random abilities just as flavor and context. Is like, yeah, I've got all this optimization going on for combat or spellcasting or whatever role it is I'm going to play in the party. But if I have the bandwidth and I've already hit all my major optimization points, anything I have left over is just flavor text. Like if your character has access to 3 languages and you only need common for the team, picking a language could be strategic, fitting the type of monsters that the DM has indicated you're going to be interacting with during this course of the campaign. And once you cover those bases, if you have a language or 2 that's still laying around, then that's when you can go for just pure flavor. It's like, yeah, I'm going to pick up Fae just because I'm really into Grimm's fairy tales, And so your DM can pick up on these things, and it's like, oh yeah, well maybe I should consider adding different fairy tale legends or limericks. As like, if they're going to read a book, it could just be a book, but I could say this is a book of limericks about whatever the subject matter is. And if that person that knows the Fey language is involved in these investigations and sees the book, if they, say, I want to participate in an investigation, I want to lend help or whatever, then it's like, yeah, Fey, you're picking up that there's weirdness about this book. It feels like there's fairy magic on it. And then you can lean into that, and that would then prompt them to like do a detect magic, and then you can start investigating what kind of magic is on it, and blah blah blah. But having just BS things that your character, you add to your character's sheet, actually can make a significant difference in the narration of the story that you're involved in. So when you're designing an adventure, especially when you're publishing an adventure, keeping those sort of ideas in mind about like what little tidbits or weirdness can you introduce into your adventure that will make players feel smart and clever for having chosen unusual skill combinations, or basically just padding out their character with just spare features that aren't necessarily leaning into combat specifically. Reward them. Just reward them. And it's easy to do, and just looking at the kind of characters that they make and what they put on their sheets can often give you leads to new types of adventures that you want to run with the team in the first place. Don't need that. I love branches. They're so fun. Here we go. What is it, 7:30? I still have a half hour. Almost done. Just putting a base coat of paint on this layer here, basically, and then we'll use that lighter color we picked up here to highlight it. So first we build the base, and then we highlight on top of it. Basically, like comic book cell shading. And again, this is a 300 by 300 pixel space, so it's a very, very low poly environment. Just like that. And there. Looking for anything I need to fix here real quick. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Cool. So we'll go ahead and hit save here real quick. And let's just start doing some wibbly bits like this. Let's just start filling in some texture, deciding where the lighting is going to be on here. Like that. creating some base texture and effect going on here. And once we smudge it all into each other, it'll blend down a little bit more. Oops, god damn it. I really needed to have made that a separate layer. Let's undo all that and we'll do it again. I could just select and then batch fill to replace all of it, but hitting the back button like this is basically like slapping my hand over and over again. There, punishment complete. Now I can create a new proper layer. There, we can do it like that. I'm just kind of scattergunning some color into here, and then we can go through here with a high resolution, a high impact smudge brush to start streaking this stuff in, so it smooths out, becomes less blotches and more strands of bark, like that. And by being inconsistent with these little, like by tapping and dragging little clumps of color into here initially, and then it's inconsistent in its patterning and its size. And then when I come through and I pull at the smudges with this blending tool, it creates inconsistency on like areas that get less smudged than others that still have more of their shape. Like in here, those become knots, like little here, like you can see the little knots and bumps in here, plus the flow. That's generally how this technique works to create a very low effort bark effect. And it's fun to do because it's very low effort, and it specifically only requires you stay within the lines of the form that you're putting the bark on. You're basically putting a skin texture at this point onto your tree silhouette. And then once we're done with this process, we can go back through and we can create a shade layer underneath this. Like this is the base layer. And then underneath this, we can build a shade effect so that it deepens the ruts in the bark, depending on where the curvature of the tree cylinders are at. You know, I'll show you that process here probably in a few minutes. It doesn't have to be extensive, just a little bit of color here and there. go. Nice and subtle. All right, 20 minutes left. I'm good with it. Go like that. Nice. All right, so this is where our mid-tone is at. This is our base. So I want to take a mid-tone, or rather I want to take a shadow. So I'm going to grab this dark bit down here. I'm going to use this one in comparison. I'll go with this lighter one. And then we're going to grab as much of a highlight as we can find on here, which is about like that. Not quite there. That feels better. So we can take this, we can just decide where the shadows are supposed to be on here, like this. And then using the same smudging effect, just basically pull down at these shadows so it falls in behind the mid-tone that we just created. And I'm just basically treating the trunk and the branches that come off of it as cylinders, which is appropriate because they basically are. But using just lighting cylinders, or like having the edges generally being more steeped in shadow, while the center mass has more highlights on it. It's just an easy generic formatting for the color, or for lighting on tree branches like this in general. So once I finish integrating the shadow work into it, I can mess with its opacity to make it more brighter or darker, based on the mood I want for the piece and how I feel the shading on the tree leans into that mood. Just like that. See, guys, it doesn't take much at all for it to look really good. Go. Some strategic erasing here and there to help make one piece stand out a little bit more from the rest of the structure around it. Really doesn't take a lot to make really good texturing in nature. You just got to kind of understand how the lighting works and how you can, like, a lot of fun painting techniques is being able to create like good results with minimal effort. But you don't really discover those until you discover your own style and how you resolve challenges and depicting realism, and like you have to go through all that process to really understand what's right for the way that you make art. Like, I can show you techniques that I think are cool and that work for me that people can pick up and use themselves, obviously, but until you get to a stage where you're able to create these sort of things for yourself, you're just kind of a student collecting lessons from others that have come before you. And so once you start understanding how those techniques work, breaking them down and taking the principles from them, like this is just like this technique here is just layering light over dark and having some chaos added to the stippling of it to help randomize the effect so it doesn't feel planned or like fabricated, you know. Like one of the biggest compliments that I've gotten was one of my landscape paintings, someone accused it of being a photograph. Until I zoomed, it was a really high resolution image that I created using basically Bob Ross techniques. And it was when I was able to zoom into the image to show the obvious man-made effects that they recanted. It's like, oh wow, it's really good. Had me fooled. Like, excellent. That's the kind of like that's the level of satisfaction you can seek as an artist. Like once you gain mastery over the skill set that you're seeking. There, that feels pretty good. So I can, if I want to, I can go in here and I can say I can drop the intensity of that shadow. It can be like say like that. That's about 70. What is that? Let's take it down to 75 just to make it even. But then I can make another layer over it, and then if I want to make like back here where the shadow is at on the tree to help pick a direction, basically, right? I can continue to lay in new shadow only on the side that I want to have more darkness. Now, since we have, this is a bit, see, I can get rid of that. See, it looks kind of veiny. You lose that textury feel. But by adding this this mid-tone over it, it starts to reintroduce some texture feeling to it. And now that I can see where the darkness is splotching out more around the shadows, I can take this mid-tone and smudge it over little pockets where I don't think it seems natural for the darkness to be overwhelming like that. So now we're controlling expectations and image acknowledgement. By what feels weird to me probably feels weird to you. So after going through this process and I look at the piece and like, that feels weird there, that means I need to change it. It'll probably feel weird to someone else too. Yeah, I like that. So now I'm going to go back in, and we picked out this highlight color already here. See? It stands up pretty good. I just basically slosh on some pixelishness to it, up the size of the smudge brush, and just basically traipse it across here. And then I can pull down and erase at it a little bit to break it up. There you go. Smudge and erase. A little bit of highlight here to make things pop out a little bit. Like, I'm fine with this little tear through here in the shadow, but I want to highlight it to separate it out a little bit, just to make it stand out as something fun. It's a little thing to discover in the composition. There we go. There we go. Just pepper that on a little bit there, just make some texture. So, are you going to put leaves? No. No, because at this point where you're encountering them, the foliage on the trees have started to wither and die from the necromantic, the necrosis that's wafting in the sky. It's drenching the foliage with basically rot disease. So this far in, the team is only running across bare branched trees. The blah 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 blah. You could run across assassin vines that advance far enough into the forest to be among foliage where they prefer to be. But I want to have a tree that's skeletal like this because it's leaning into the necromantic effect of the environment rotting away at the foliage. So I'm specifically using the tree to be bare twigged like this. to help reinforce the state of the environment. And it will make the assassin vine stand out more, but this is an illustration of the assassin vine. I want them to stand out more specifically, so that you as a DM can grok what it is that you're messing around with, to be able to properly, provide description for it. There, I think I am plenty happy with the tree, and oh my god, it's 7:58, so I'm going to be bouncing out of here in a minute. Yeah. So, not bad. It's some decent texture. So, I'm going to actually drop the mid-tone here a touch to help those highlights pop out a little bit more. That's decent texture. So, when we come back tomorrow, we'll be able to integrate the assassin vines into this, and we'll call this piece done, and we'll random up another one. But so we do Eberron in the mornings now. So I do this 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I have a Saturday morning workbench where I'll do commissions, side projects, and extra effort on whatever, which we'll be doing with Spelljammer, I'm sure, this Saturday. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursday lunch times, including today. We've been developing the Eberron Spelljammer campaign that I'm running for my home table as a DM. You can see me going through the creative process of creating basically a new campaign for my team. I run campaigns from level 1 to 20 in about 200 hours. We just finished our third, so we're creating a new campaign. This one's going to be a little different in style that I've spent about 10 episodes developing so far, basically into a new role-playing game. Like kind of out of nowhere. It's really cool. And then on Mondays and Thursday nights, I do the B project. And Eberron was the B project, but now it's switched with the Spelljammer project. And since all I'm doing is assembly work with Spelljammer now, I have like a little bit of artwork I need to do here and there. But it's insignificant now to the point where I can just do it on Mondays and Thursday. So I'll have tonight, Thursday, and then Monday next week will probably be the last night I need to do anything with Spelljammer, if it isn't already done in publishing. It could be done I could publish it as soon as Monday, but I'm anticipating publishing on Tuesday. So that's my current plan is to publish by a week from now, which will be the 27th. So everything should be absolutely done by then. Sealed document, zip file done, ready to put it up on the DMsGuild. So that's what I'm expecting to happen throughout the rest of this week and next week. So we'll have basically tonight, Thursday, and then Monday next week, in the final production for Spelljammer, and then we'll start looking at what secondary extension do we want to make for Spelljammer beyond that. Yeah, so that's basically our workflow process, Monday through Saturday, 3 times on Mondays, 2 times on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 times on Fridays, and then once on Saturday. Oh, and then I make a video each week, and I publish that on, not every week, but at least every other week, if not every week. I'll make a small video, currently spelljamming stuff, and I'll publish that on Monday, on Sunday. So you can see the growing list of Spelljammer video content that I've produced on my YouTube channel here. So that's it for today, guys. Karen, thanks a lot for hanging out. It's good to see you. And anyone that's new, be welcome to kick in and hang out with. And we'll publish this too later on this year. We still have some maps to finish. And we'll go through the same page layout process and art integrating into the gaps on the pages like we did for the entire spelljamming process that we've been doing for the past year. So you'll see all that come together. And I will be back in about 5 hours. So I'll see you guys then. Later.